Welcome, algebra students. Today is the day you are going to learn how to get an equation for the line of best fit using your calculator instead of doing it by hand. So this is great for two reasons. The first is usually we had to think about our equation for a line and we had to solve for the slope by subtracting our y's and dividing it by our x's subtracted, and then we had to solve for our y-intercept by plugging in our slope and a point on the line, and it got to be a lot of work, especially if the numbers were a little bit large or negative. It could be a little messy. The second reason we want to use technology to find a line of best fit is we were just looking at the data individually and picking 2 points that we thought made a good line of best fit. But we quickly discovered that your line of best fit might have been different than someone else in class, and that person's line might have been different than the next person's. So we all were coming up with slightly different lines of best fit. But when we think about what this name really represents, it should be the best, the line of best, most greatest fit. And the fact is, some of our lines weren't the best. And that brought us to the discussion of residuals. And our residual being the actual data, what actually happened, minus our predicted, what our line, whoops, I accidentally turned on the eraser, minus the predicted. And our predicted is what our line said. So our residuals is really just our error. How off was our prediction from what actually happened? And so we started looking at our residuals, and we discovered if our line really fits the data well, we should have very small residuals. And the best fit line is going to have the smallest amount of residuals. And that's what your calculator does for you. It figures out, how do I minimize my residuals? So minimize, least, smallest, that's where we get this other alternate name for a line of best fit. So this funky looking vocab word at the top of your paper is just another way to refer to the line of best fit. So let's break down each word. Least, that's coming from the idea of minimizing our residuals. Squares is actually how your calculator calculates the smallest amount of residuals. It actually takes each residual, squares it, and adds it together. And then it figures out, how do I minimize all of those residuals squared? So that's why it's called least squares regression line. Regression line is just another way of saying our line of best fit. So least squares regression line is our new vocab word, but it refers to the same thing, just our line of best fit. And since this is a long 4 words, we shorten it to be LSRL, the least squares regression line. Again, that's still the same thing as our line of best fit that we've been working with. It is a unique line, so that means it is possible for your calculator to figure out one single equation that best fits, models the data, so that we get the smallest possible value for all of those residuals. So now that you are understanding why we need technology, let's get out our calculators. So I've actually got one on my computer, nifty enough, but get out yours. If you don't have one, this is a great time to ask me for one, but you really need to get one because there's no other way to do this other than using some form of technology. So in order to get the equation of the line of best fit, I first need to get my scatter plot in the calculator. So to do that, let's get our calculators out, and we are in the statistics unit, so we're going to press the stat button on our calculator. This window should pop up. You're going to press enter on edit so that we can edit our lists. The data we're going to look at today is the same data that you analyzed on Thursday. It's the data for minutes played and total points scored. So go to page 1 in your packet and let's input the data. So make sure you're on list 1 as you enter in the X values, which are the minutes played. I'm actually probably going to be slower than you are because I'm on my computer, so I'm not quite used to, I'm more used to doing this on my calculator. But all I'm doing is typing in all of the minutes played data. We do need to be very careful as we're typing this in, because if you make a mistake on typing it, then your equation is going to be wrong. All right, so it looks like we have 14 total data points, so we should get 14 in list 2 as well. And this is the list of total points scored in a season. And look what I just did. I made a mistake. That's why you really got to check your work as you go. So this one was supposed to be 2491. There we go. And just keep entering and press enter. 594. So if you can think back to your Olympic data project, this part is exactly the same as us typing in our data into that spreadsheet. So very similar process, just looks a little different on a calculator. So it looks like I'm good to go here. I got the same number of data points, which is a good sign that I didn't mess anything up. And I actually just take a moment now to go through the list and make sure again that I didn't mess any points up. And the reason I do this is because this is kind of a long process, right? So you would be really mad if you did all this work but messed up a data point and ended up getting your equation wrong. That would be horrible. All right, I double checked my data. I think it's all in there correctly. Now we need to get our plot ready to be plotted on. So if you'll see in blue, up above the y equals key, it says stat plot. And that's what we need to get to in order to plot this data. So here are your options. We're going to press enter. We're going to press enter again to turn this plot on. We want a scatter plot, so we want that first choice highlighted. We want list 1 in our X as our X variable, and we want list 2 as our Y variable. If for some reason you don't already have that in there, like for mine it was just already in my calculator, how you get to list 1 and list 2, you'll see down here in blue. So if I wanted to get there, I would just press second list 1, and to get to list 2, I would press second list 2. So you just have to press second in order to get the blue above. So that's how you would do it if you ever mess that up. Awesome. Everything looks great. then we can go to our next step, which is setting up our window. Now, these directions, I just want to say, are also written out for you on page 9 of your packet. So if you are more of a, you want to see it out written in words, it is on page 9 if you want to follow along with me. So let's go to our window. Now, this is a little tricky, but we're just kind of guesstimating. So we need to tell your calculator how big you want your x's, like how big should it go up to, and we also need to do the same for the y's. Our x represents the minutes played, so there's no way for us to have negative minutes played. That doesn't make any sense. So let's make our x min 0, just like mine is. So your x min, this space right here should say 0. Let's go down to our x max. So let's look at our minutes played list and figure out what was the biggest number in our list. And it looks like it's 3,090. So not a huge deal what you round up to, but we want it to go up a little bit further than 3,090, just because you don't want your graph to end right on that point. So if you look at the graph that they have provided for you, it looks like they go up to 3,100. So that's what I'm going to go up by as well. If you don't know what I mean by that, not that one. Here we go. So if you look on the graph they give to you, see how it goes up to about 3,100? Just a little bit more than 3,090. We also have to do the same for our y's. So I went from 0 to 2,500. Obviously 0 because we can't have negative points scored. And then 2,500 because the max number of points scored was 2,491. So I just basically round to the nearest 100, right? Just so that it's a nice, whole, nice looking number. And again, you can see this on the graph if you look on the y-axis. Look, they go up to about 2,600. So that's why I picked that. Awesome. Let's see what this scatter plot looks like. And there it is. And see, it is the same scatter plot that was provided for you. So it is quickly generated that way, which is awesome. Now, if you are thinking to yourself, Missioners, that window stuff was too crazy for me, I don't think, whoa, I just dropped something. I don't think I can do that on my own. If you go to Zoom and go down to Zoom Stat, which is number 9, I believe. Yep, here it is. And press enter. It will zoom it all for you. So maybe you just want to use that as a rule of thumb, but I did want to take a moment to talk about our X's and our Y's. I mean, it's fun, right? Alrighty then, let's get going here then. We want to do next, we've got our graph. Now let's figure out our equation, our actual line of best fit, the reason we're here. So how we're going to do that is we're going to press stat, and we are going to go over, again, stat, because we're in stats, you can kind of remember it that way. Go over to calc, and remember what this line is called, what we're calling it now, is least squares regression line. So you want to go to linreg, which is standing for a linear regression. That's what we're doing. You want to press enter and make sure again that your X list is L1 and your Y list is L2. And you want to, I'll pause it here, so make sure you're here, and then I'll do another video to finish the process.